Mangwanani Malalepo Vukenjani Kwa Savannah Africa. Welcome to Africa. Good morning. And today is a special day. Yes. We turned one today. We are exactly 1 year old. We started this program on Monday, 5 October last year. Yes. Has it been that long?
It has been that long, but it feels like it hasn't been that long.
Right, because we've truly grown from strength to strength, and want to thank all our viewers, all the people who have supported this show. Yeah. We do come to you every single weekday from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. bring you the news and current affairs from the SADC region and beyond. You can also catch AGM live on NMH's platforms, the Republican, Namibian Sign, Algemeiner Zeitung, as well as One Up 2, the website with all of NMH's local and international content. Feels so good to be here.
It feels amazing. I'm so excited for us. Halala. Yes, we need to throw in a halala.
Exactly. And sending love to our co-presenters, Naledi Kunene and Thierry, Mr. Thierry.
All right, moving on. Today is World Teachers Day. Teachers Day aims to raise awareness of the importance of the role played by teachers all over the world. The responsibility of educating future generation is not a light one by any means, so show support to those that are dedicated and important people, not just teachers, but throughout the whole year. And here is more on World Teachers Day. We are back. This is Africa. Good morning, and here are the news making headlines. Ethiopia's Abiy Ahmed sworn in amid dissenting voices. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Ethiopia's first Oromo ruler, now set to be sworn in for a new year, 5-year term. The enthusiasm surrounding his appointment has long faded for some Oromos. This weekend, they made their frustrations known during a 2-day Irecha festivity on Saturday in Addis Ababa and on Sunday in the town of Bishoftu, traditionally home to the largest Irecha gatherings. Chanting "Down, down Abim," they complained about the same issues that drove them into the streets in 2016, killings of Omoro civilians, mass arrest of Oromo youth, and incarceration of Oromo opposition politicians. Irecha marks the end of the rains and the start of the harvest. For more than a century, hundreds of thousands of Oromos have descended on Bishoftu, southwest Addis Ababa, for the holiday.
In our next story, Tunis regrets French decision to reduce visas. Tunisian President Kais Saied had a telephone conversation on Saturday with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron, during which he expressed his regrets over the reduction announced by Paris of visas granted to Tunisians, according to an official statement. President Saied replied that the issue of irregular migration can only be addressed on the basis of a new vision. The two heads of state discussed migration issues during the telephone conversation and agreed to strengthen bilateral cooperation in this area, said LSE in a statement. According to the statement, President Macron mentioned the institutional timetable expected by the Tunisian population and the international community and expressed his commitment to the establishment of dialogue involving the various components of the Tunisian population on the institutional reforms envisaged. The Tunisian president grabbed full executive powers at the end of July by dismissing the government and suspending the parliament. On Wednesday, he asked Najla Bouden to form a new government.
Mali receives 4 helicopters and weapons from Russia. Russia recently delivered 4 Mi-171 helicopters to Mali, an event that comes as France worries about Moscow's growing influence with the transitional government. This delivery comes at a time of great tension with France, a former colonial power and historic partner which, like many African countries and European countries, is worried about Mali's possible recourse to the parliamentaries of the Russian private group Wagner. The interim Malian Minister of Defense, Colonel Sergio Camara, on Thursday, the 30th of September, received 4 military helicopters provided by Russia and praised the reliability and the seriousness of this partner who has always given us satisfaction. We are here tonight to receive 4 Mi-171 helicopters, weapons and ammunition. Weapons and ammunition are donated by the Russian Federation. All 4 helicopters, new as you can see, have been fully procured on the national budget, explained Colonel Camara in a video authenticated by AFP.
More than 5,000 migrants detained in Libya, according to NGO. The Norwegian Refugee Council claims thousands of migrants have been detained in Libya. A human rights worker for the Norwegian Refugee Council claims that up to 5,000 refugees have been detained since Friday. The allegations were made on Sunday following a crackdown on Friday by the Libyan police force against migrants. This is the largest crackdown on migrants in Libya that we've seen in recent years. This is not the first time that there have been large numbers of arrests. We've seen this happen a bit in a smaller scale over the last few weeks and months and over the course of the last year, where migrants and refugees in Libyan detention centers. According to the UN, the operation resulted in at least 1 dead migrant and 15 injured. The Libyan authorities claimed at least 4,000 detentions, including women and children. The Libyan Interior Ministry described the crackdown as a security operation against illegal migrants and drug trafficking. Since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi's regime in 2011, that Libya has become a major transit point into Europe for migrants escaping war and famine in Africa and the Middle East.
We move over to Rwanda, where a YouTuber has been jailed for 15 years after anti-Kagame post. A Rwandan court on Thursday sentenced a prominent YouTube commentator and genocide survivor to 15 years in prison for inciting violence after she hid out at Paul Kagame on her YouTube channel. Yvonne Idamaj is one of a number of people who have fallen foul to the authorities after turning to a video sharing platform to publish content critical of Kagame government, raising concerns among international rights groups. The 42-year-old mother of 4 who has not been in court for the verdict, was convicted of 6 charges, sentenced to 15 years behind bars and fined the equivalent of 2,000. Idamaj, who survived the 1994 genocide, was arrested in February for exhibiting behavior that mixes politics, criminality, and madness, police said at the time.
Ramaphosa, we are trying to fix high unemployment rates of black women. In his weekly letter to the nation, President Cyril Ramaphosa said although progress has been made in promoting equality for women in areas such as government and civil society, the same cannot be said for female participation in the economy. He said there are still more men employed than women and that women still earn less than men do overall. Women also own less land than men do, even though farms allocated by the state, with black African women currently seeing the highest rate of unemployment. 41% of black women are unemployed, more than 4 percentage points higher than the national average. As a way to address these issues, Ramaphosa said the inaugural Women's Economic Assembly, which will convene in Gauteng later this week, brings together delegates from government, civil society, and the private sector to help develop a common plan of action for advancing women's economic empowerment.
SAA will need an upgraded fleet to compete outside Africa. South African Airways will need a more modern fleet to be competitive on routes outside its home continent following the COVID-19 crisis, according to the interim CEO Thomas Gokolo. The state-owned airline, which is poised to resume flights after emerging from bankruptcy proceeding, used to generate revenues on trips to cities such as London and Frankfurt, but its Aging Airbus SE planes have prohibitive operating cost, he said in a panel discussion on Wednesday. SAA is set to restart trips on the 23rd of September, about 18 months after the fleet was grounded at the start of the coronavirus pandemic. Flights are set to operate from Johannesburg to Cape Town, plus African capitals Accra, Kinshasa, Harare, Lusaka, and Maputo.
Come and invest in Uganda, Ugandan President Museveni tells the world. The tallest building in the world, Burj Khalifa, yesterday displayed colors of the Ugandan flag to mark the official day for Uganda to open its doors to the world at the Dubai Expo 2021, the world's greatest show. The Dubai Expo is a globally recognized trade event and is this year expected to attract more than 190 countries, 12 months after it was beaten back by the COVID-19 outbreak. The theme of Expo 2020 Dubai is Connecting Minds, Creating the Future, with 3 sub-themes of mobility, opportunity, and sustainability. Mr. Museveni, who flew to the Gulf state for a 3-day working trip, assured the would-be investors of an abundance of raw materials such as minerals and agriculture produce, as well as a market beyond the country's borders. Uganda is the right place because Uganda happens to have all these 3. When you come to invest in Uganda, you can produce so many goods and so many services. The spectrum is so big and it is really unimaginable. There is nothing you cannot produce in Uganda, he said.
In our next story, 1.1 million South Africans fully inoculated against COVID-19, majority are women. Of the 12.8 million South Africans that have been vaccinated against COVID-19, a total of 9.1 million were fully inoculated by Sunday afternoon, says the National Development of Health. With 39.7 million adults in the country, this means 32.2% of the population has received a vaccine. Majority are females, 57% in comparison to 43% of males. The majority of these were in the age category of 60 years and over. The National Department of Health said a total of 17.8 million doses of the vaccine were given. Of these, over 13 million were the double-dose Pfizer vaccine compared to 4 million single doses of Johnson & Johnson. A total of 52,556 individuals were vaccinated in the past 24 hours. The majority of these 15,546 were from the Gauteng province. In terms of percentage, in terms of its population, the Western Cape is leading with almost 41% of its population having received a vaccine. With Gauteng having the highest population, over 11 million, the province is placed 6th in the country, with only having vaccinated 29.56% of its population.
Next, we're talking about the outstanding work of Angolan missionaries. The Angolan authorities highlighted the work carried out by Angolan missionaries of the Teresian Sisters community who have contributed to the education of adolescents and young girls in Sao Tome and Principe. Speaking to the press, the Secretary of State for International Cooperation and Angolan Communities of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Vieira Lopez, said that the attitude of these sisters, who deserve everyone's support and recognition, is to be commended. The missionary Maria do Rosario, born in the province of Benguela, considered the work in Sao Tome and Principe a good experience, since the mission is to help brothers. They have taught in different institutions and supported a boarding school with teenagers and young people aged between 12 and 20 years. The girls who are at the boarding school come from disadvantaged families and practically do not contribute to anything.
Compulsory vaccination for Anglican priests. It is now mandatory for the Anglican Church clergy in Southern Africa, including Eswatini, to vaccinate. This follows reports that the Anglican Church of Southern Africa's ruling provincial synod voted in favor of the church making a resolution that COVID-19 vaccination among the clergy be made mandatory. The resolution was announced by President of the Anglican Church of Southern Africa, Dr. Thabo Makgoba, who told the synod that in a deadly pandemic, the right of your neighbor to life inevitably circumscribes your right to do as you like, and asked its members to take it seriously. Our prophetic role in society, we debate this matter. The deacon further mentioned that once the resolution was taken at the provincial synod, all countries affiliated with the Anglican Church of Southern Africa are compelled to follow that resolution. The Anglican Church of Southern Africa, in a release statement, was quoted as having said, "We support the call from Archbishop for the mandatory vaccination of the clergy on the grounds that the necessity they have to be close to other people, they visit vulnerable people to provide pastoral care, and numbers of people in the congregations are vulnerable by virtue of age or commodities rather."
All right, in the last of our top stories, Namibia ranks low in digital quality of life. Namibia's internet affordability is around 50% worse than the global average, reveals the Digital Quality of Life Index study. According to the third annual edition of the Digital Quality of Life study, Namibia ranks 100th among 110 countries. It reveals that Namibians have to work more than 14 minutes to afford the cheapest 1 gigabyte mobile data package, 4 minutes more than the worldwide average. The study was conducted by cybersecurity company Surfshark and covers 90% of the global population. It evaluates countries based on 5 fundamental digital well-being pillars. Namibia shows its best results in internet quality and affordability, ranking 62nd in both, but has comparatively low ranks in e-security, 102nd in infrastructure, 96th, and e-government, 90th. Overall, Namibia ranks 13th in Africa. The country struggles with e-security because of the low availability of data protection laws and poor cybersecurity index, and it is surpassed by Angola and South Africa. All right, that brings us to the end of our top stories. We have more for you after the break. Africa Good Morning is celebrating turning 1. We'd also like to thank all our mixers, Xavier, Joseph, Kaya, Johan. We miss you. Thank you very much for supporting us. And after the break, we're going to be talking about something that our producer and director, Mr. Ernst Fenske, is looking forward to. Bicycle lanes. Stick around. Over the next 15 years, African cities will add 300 million new urban residents, 2/3 more than today's urban population. Today's cities in Africa struggle to manage rapidly growing populations. Sprawling development patterns push new housing developments far from people's jobs, resulting in longer and longer commutes. Despite heavy investment in road infrastructure in major cities, traffic congestion is a daily challenge. To alleviate congestion, Namibia's capital, Windhoek, is currently seeing the construction of its first bicycle lanes. However, the trend of creating space for non-motorized transport is on the rise throughout the continent. Yolanda Nell reports.
So the United Nations Environmental Program reports that every year, I think it's better this way, reports that every year on the 22nd of September, cities across the globe celebrate Car-Free Day, encouraging motorists to give up their cars for a day. It's probably not something that we've done yet in Windhoek, but the event highlights the numerous benefits of going car-free to citizens, including reduced air pollution and the promotion of walking and cycling in a safer environment. Many people also do not realize precisely how much pollution affects our life. It was already said by the acting CEO, but vehicle emissions are one of the main sources of outdoor air pollution, particularly in cities. Ambient air pollution alone causes around 4.2 million deaths. That's a figure from 2016 according to the World Health Organization. And is also the fastest growing source of fossil fuel CO2 emissions, which is, as you all know, the largest contributor to climate change. I've actually also looked it up yesterday that poor air quality is a bigger killer than all the other ones that we commonly know. HIV, cancer, even smoking as a habit, you know, it's bigger than all of that. So in Namibia, and especially in Windhoek, I think this is particularly relevant as we have in recent years become nothing other than a dumping ground for cheap second-hand vehicles, which no longer meet emission standards in their country of origin, which means they've lost their value, but they seem to be welcomed here. I think this not only kills the local vehicle trade, but it handsomely contributes to the ever-increasing air pollution in our city.
Windhoek still experiences the combined effect of apartheid spatial planning and a car-oriented mobility system. Residential areas for middle to low-income earners are typically situated far from the CBT, where most employment opportunities are found. On average, Windhoek low-income earners spend 24% of their disposable income on mobility, and 52% of them cannot afford transport. And I think the figure should actually be higher than that. In 2013, the City of Windhoek, along with the Ministry of Works and Transport, with the support of funding from GIZ, embarked on the process of developing a sustainable urban transport master plan for Windhoek under the theme Move Windhoek project. The said plan is a 20-year plan that identifies the types of investment in infrastructure and services required to improve public transport system and non-motorized transport provision in the city of Windhoek, including Rehoboth, Okahanja, and Hosea Kutako Airport. That spirit of keeping going. We need to make sure that the transport master plan and the road master plan speak together. Because currently they are all not speaking in the same direction. Pierre would know those specific details about that. Now, in the spirit of keeping moving and keeping going, we need to make sure that we integrate this specific aspect. Following the launch of the master plan, the City of Windhoek developed an active mobility strategy, which was approved by Council in May 2019 through the assistance of the GIZ. Investing in this strategy is the city's effort to make economic opportunities more accessible to middle, low-income residents and reduce noticeable peak hour congestions, accident pollution, greenhouse gas emissions associated with cars. We have a problem, but the problem is not as big. The problem will become big if we don't plan for it. Tomorrow always belongs to those who prepare for it today.
It may seem rather a small milestone from the outside, but this event commemorates a very big milestone in the transportation sector of Namibia. Non-motorized transport under the umbrella of sustainable mobility has been a topic too long on the lips and today finally on the ground. The German government, through GIZ, has been supporting the Namibian government on the implementation of sustainable mobility since 2012. Sustainable mobility includes several forms of transport to make movement safer, more efficient and convenient. By this, all citizens, but especially these in more difficult economic circumstances, have improved access to social services and economic activities and have additional budget in the households due to the savings from transportation. Besides public transport, non-motorized transport is of the core of sustainable mobility. In a joint effort, we have developed the Sustainable Urban Transport Master Plan for Windhoek, which also includes Okahanja, Rehoboth and the Hosea Kutako International Airport, which was approved by the Namibian cabinet in 2014. Afterwards, we worked together again for the non-motorized transport strategy, which is currently an approved policy document by the Windhoek City Council, which is also including a complementary design guideline that has guided the design of the infrastructure to be constructed here now. The strategy is the first of its kind in Namibia and therefore a huge milestone for the country.
Looking at the SADC community, according to Louis de Waal of the Pedal Power Foundation in South Africa, in Southern Africa, the bicycle mode of travel plays various roles in the 16 countries south of the equator. Southern African countries can all be described as developing nations, rich in its own cultures and greatly influenced by the global growth of modern technology. Motor vehicles, aircraft, satellite television, and cellular phones are found everywhere, yet there are still millions of citizens who cannot afford these luxuries and, with respect to transport, are considered either stranded or captive. The bicycle, especially the mountain bike, can contribute greatly to the mobility for many and can create jobs in several areas. In South Africa, AfriBike is a recently established association to encourage utility cycling. AfriBike headquarters are in Johannesburg and it's presently expanding its activities through Africa. Already over 1,000 Africans have benefited from this program in Johannesburg, and authorities are beginning to realize how the humble but efficient bicycle can contribute to better health, environment, mobility, and improve the quality of life for many people. Bicycle demonstration projects carried out in South Africa in urban areas have taught city officials and the bicycle designers that bicycle path networks must be continuous, and you should not leave cyclists to find their own way to the next bicycle path. Adequate width, good surfaces, informative signs, and safe intersection crossings attract cyclists. Then there needs to be a supply of bicycle parking, sufficient surveys before and after implementation for monitoring purposes, and to inform the public of how their taxes are spent is very important. Maintenance is vital, as bicycles do not sweep the roads like motorized vehicles does, and traffic enforcement must take bicycle paths into account to prevent motor vehicles stopping or parking in bicycle paths. The recommendations was that all countries in Southern Africa should maximize the advantages of cycling both in rural and urban areas. Bicycle touring should be encouraged as it is a good foreign exchange earner. And lastly, it is the most energy efficient mode of transport existing on the planet. It does not pollute. It provides many work-related activities, it is reasonably cheap to acquire, and it provides excellent mobility for the user. It is irresponsible to ignore the benefits of cycling, and Namibia has started its project, and it can only grow from here.
Strike it gold and win 5,000 Namibian dollars in cash with Neo Paints. Simply buy Neo Paints products from the selected range and stand a chance to get one of 12 mystery buckets filled with gold paint. All 12 winners will each get 3 extra paint buckets equal to their purchase. One to replace the gold paint, the second to use on your project, and the third to give to a charity of their choice. One winner can score another 10,000 Namibian dollars by showing us your creative use of the golden paint. The best project wins the cash. Offer is valid from 27 September to 18 December at your favorite hardware store nationwide. Visit us at neopaints.com for more competition details and follow us on Facebook for weekly competition updates. Neo Paints, a coat of excellence.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, childhood cancer is on the rise in Zimbabwe. Talent Gore has this story and more. Good morning, Talent. Talent, are you there?
Good morning, Aina. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Please take it away.
Zimbabwe has been recording an increase in the number of children who have cancer due to poor health due to poor health management by the parents. Apparently, in Zimbabwe, we only have one hospital which deals with cancer for children, and the hospital unit in Harare has been admitting 2 to 3 new cancer patients every week. The unit is the only one providing care to children with cancer in the whole of Zimbabwe. So on average, the hospital has at least 17 patients admitted in the wards. Every day, the hospital sees at least 15 patients that come in for outpatient chemotherapy, and apparently the children are seeking treatment at a later stage, but 80% of the children can actually be cured if they present early. Apparently, and also globally, childhood cancer is rare, and 1 in 100,000 children will have cancer. So we only have one hospital which deal with childhood cancer in Zimbabwe. And this hospital, it caters for every child in Zimbabwe who has cancer. We find out that we have children who come from all over the country to seek treatment for cancer, for childhood cancer.
All right, now there have been calls for presidents in Zimbabwe to get 5 more years in office. Who's making these calls and why?
So there are calls for President Emmerson Mnangagwa to get 5 more years in office so that he finishes the different projects which he started when he came into office. So a hashtag on social media is trending, which is hashtag 5 more years. Neutrals are saying that there is need to maintain the present economic growth trajectory and the infrastructure development projects which the president has started. We have seen that the Permanent Secretary for Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Mr. Nick Mangwana, has said that the president deserves another 5 years. And the reason for 5 more years are very clear. He says that he needs to finish what he started. He's not the only one who has since said that the president should get 5 more years in office. We have seen that the Minister of Public Service has also said that the president should get 5 more years in office. There's actually the hashtag is actually trending on Twitter, to be specific, to get the president to get 5 more years in office. Apparently, Zimbabwe is supposed to go for elections in 2023, but we have since seen these calls for the president to continue in office for 5 more years.
All right, now more men have reported gender-based violence in Zimbabwe. Please tell us more.
A number of males are reporting gender-based violence. This came at a campaign which the Ministry of Women Affairs is currently holding all across the country. So they said that more males are reporting gender-based violence, and the response is quite overwhelming because in the past, females were the ones who would actually report gender-based violence, but now males are coming up and they are reporting gender-based violence, and now the roles have reversed. The females are the ones who are now putting the cases under the bed for their husbands who are raping their siblings or their children. So the Ministry of Women Affairs has actually encouraged more males and females to report gender-based violence. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Talent, for bringing us the news from Zimbabwe. And by the way, congratulations to you too. Africa Good Morning is one today.
Oh, congratulations, Africa Good Morning.
Wonderful. Now, I'm not sure about the Zimbabwean president, but I certainly hope we get 5 years or more. All right, next up, weather. The Swakopmund municipality recently vaccinated nearly 2,000 dogs and cats. In this way, they form part of the World Health Organization's 0 by 30 campaign, which aims to eliminate human deaths as a result of rabies. Have a look.
Good morning. So over here in Namibia at the Namibian coast, the Swakopmund municipality has vaccinated 1,583 dogs as well as 43 cats in a anti-rabies vaccination drive. This was from the 20th to the 24th of September, so right in time for World Rabies Day. So the efforts by the Swakopmund municipality might not seem like a big deal, but they are but one cogwheel, one little moving part of a larger machine that aims toward the World Health Organization's aim of 0 by 30. So this is something that was instated on World Rabies Day, the 28th of September in 2017, in which the World Health Organization aims to have 0 human deaths as a result of rabies by the year 2030. So the 28th of September specifically is World Rabies Day, fun fact, because it is the anniversary of Louis Pasteur's death. So Louis Pasteur is a French scientist who invented the first rabies vaccine. So the problem with rabies at this point is that it affects a very specific kind of population. So the World Health Organization says that, or believes that rabies is most prevalent in Asia and Africa, and it predominantly affects poor and vulnerable communities, communities in rural, faraway areas. So the big problem here is, here's a little statistic for you, 95% of rabies cases occur in Africa and Asia. Victims are usually between the ages of 5 years and 14 years, so relatively young victims as well. So the big problem with rabies is that the cost of post-exposure prophylaxis, or PEP, which is a treatment for rabies, costs about $40 in Africa and about $49 in Asia, which are the two most affected populations. So, okay, this is the cost of PEP, but the problem is that the average income of the communities and the persons who are most vulnerable and susceptible to rabies is about $1 to $2 per day. So this is quite a cost for these vulnerable communities. And then a further problem for these communities is that the, might I add, very effective rabies vaccine is not usually properly available and accessible to these far-off rural communities. So then the treatment for rabies is a vaccine. There is a rabies vaccine that is well credited as a very, very effective vaccine, as well as immunoglobulins. So immunoglobulins are essentially just rabies antibodies. So the symptoms of rabies are very easily dismissible. The incubation period for rabies is quite long, which could make detection even harder. So the incubation period typically runs between 1 and 3 months, but it can vary anywhere between a week and a year. So if a dog had bitten you a year ago, you wouldn't be so concerned with your flu-like symptoms that you are currently developing. It's easily dismissible as just your average flu. Instead of this dog had bitten me a year ago, I might have rabies. That is also another problem in detecting and successfully treating and thus eradicating rabies. So how long this incubation period takes depends on the location of the virus entry, so where you were bitten or scratched or whatever, and then of course the viral load that eventually of rabies, the viral load of rabies that had entered your body. So the viral load, essentially, for those of us who are not qualified medical doctors, viral load refers to how much of the virus had entered your body in relation to how much blood is in your body, you know, your size, who you are as a human. The initial symptoms include fever and pain, again a very easily dismissible symptom, unusual or unexplained tingling, this is called paresthesia. This can also sometimes be detected as a prickling or a burning sensation in patients. Then as it spreads to the central nervous system, the organs of your central nervous system being your brain and your spinal cord, progressive and fatal inflammation of the brain and spinal cord is also detected. So those come with a set of their own symptoms. So encephalitis, which is the inflammation of the brain, often only shows flu-like symptoms and sometimes has no symptoms at all. Later on, as it progresses, patients could develop confused thinking, seizures, as well as sensory problems. So this is essentially just their senses, their sense of smell, their sense of touch, their sense of taste, their sight, not quite being as it should be. In infants, you can also detect the bulging of the soft spots of the skull, and then nausea and vomiting, as well as body stiffness and poor feeding and irritability in infants. Transverse myelitis, which is the inflammation of the spinal cord, is detected with pain starting in your lower back and sharp pains that may shoot through the legs and arms or around the chest and the abdomen, as well as paresthesia, which is abnormal touch sensations such as hot and cold and prickling and burning and those kinds of things. Weakness in the limbs, as well as irregular bladder and bowel movement. So you could be on the lookout for those. They're quite regular symptoms that occur in conjunction with other conditions as well. So if you do have one of these symptoms, you don't necessarily have rabies. You don't necessarily have inflammation of your central nervous system. It's just something that you could look out for. Then in raging rabies, patients may develop hyperactivity, excitable behavior, hydrophobia, which is a fear of water, and aerophobia, which is a fear of gusts of air. Usually at this stage, death will occur within a few days of cardiorespiratory arrest. Then there's also paralytic rabies, which occurs in roughly 30% of human cases and usually takes a longer course. The muscles gradually become paralyzed, and this starts generally around the injury. So if you were bitten on your hand, the muscles in your hand would start to go numb and paralyzed. Paralysis would start in your hand generally. The coma also develops slowly and is often misdiagnosed, as many underreported illnesses, of which rabies is one. Misdiagnosis is a very, very, very big problem. But that all being said, there's absolutely no reason to fear. I myself get a little bit paranoid as well, so please don't get paranoid. There is very, very effective treatment for rabies available. So we have spoken previously about post-exposure prophylaxis, as well as the extensive washing and local treatment of the wound, and then the rabies vaccine. So there is luckily no reason to fear, because there is quite effective treatment for rabies if you have not been vaccinated against rabies post-exposure. Pre-exposure, you can be treated post-exposure. So if you suspect that you have been exposed to potential rabies, you have been bitten or scratched by an animal you suspect might be rabid, post-exposure prophylaxis is available. Please do seek that help. Extensive washing and treatment of the wound is also absolutely vital, according to the World Health Organization, in preventing being infected with rabies, even if you did come into contact with a rabid animal. There's also a vaccine for rabies, as well as rabies immunoglobulins. So immunoglobulins, as I've said previously, are just antibodies. So there are 3 categories of rabies, and in the most severe category of rabies, or the most severe sort of suspicion of rabies, they will administer rabies immunoglobulins to a patient. So there is quite a lot that can be done if you have come in contact with a rabid animal or a suspected rabid animal. First step is always just to clean the wound. Clean it thoroughly, clean it for a minimum of 15 minutes with soap, water, detergent, iodine, or any other disinfectants that are safe for human consumption. With that being said, the symptoms of rabies are quite common. They can easily be confused with something else. This also contributes to misdiagnosis, but it also contributes to paranoia and people thinking that they may have something like rabies when in fact they just have a common flu. So please don't let it go to your head too much, but be on the lookout. If you did come into contact with a strange animal, if you did have a little bit of an interaction with a strange animal that you suspect could be rabid, please seek treatment. It's the only way that we're going to help the World Health Organization reach their target of 0 by 30.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to dive straight into your economic news stories. In our first story, we are in Angola. Economic diversification is a matter of life and death. The President of the Republic, João Lourenço, stated that the country is seeking to develop other sectors of the economy outside the oil sector, considering the diversification of the economy a matter of life and death. In an interview with the North American daily The Wall Street Journal, broadcast yesterday by the public television of Angola, João Lourenço stated that the country cannot, in any way, in the medium and long term, continue to spend almost on exclusively from the export of crude oil. The President of the Republic estimated at more than $4 billion, divided between cash and goods, have been recovered in the fight against corruption. The head of state clarified that part of the recovered assets are being privatized.
In our next story, after 55 years, economist turning point starts with diamonds again. Diamonds are expected to once again kickstart economy's recovery following its worst performance in history. After 5 decades, the previous stone this year come full circle from a miraculous growth they triggered decades ago. In the years following the miracle diamonds created in the 1970s, visionary policymakers began to realize the dangers of the country's becoming single commodity economy. This was particularly clear as global economic cycles led to fluctuations in diamond earnings and budget planning difficulties in the 1980s. The long-held aspiration for economic diversification date back to these early years of the post-diamond discovery era.
All right, now we zoom in on Eswatini as second quarter growth figures second lowest in SACU. The country's economic growth figures for the second quarter of this year are among the lowest when compared to that of its SACU counterparts. Eswatini is a member of the Southern African Customs Union alongside Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, and South Africa. The increase was only the 0.6% following an increase of 2.6% in the first quarter of this year. Comparisons made by this publication showed that these figures were among the lowest in SACU region, as they were only better than Botswana's. For Namibia, the domestic economy rebounded into a positive trajectory, recording a positive performance of 1.6% during the second quarter of 2021. Botswana's economy, on the other hand, grew by 0.2% on a quarter-to-quarter seasonally adjusted and 36% year-on-year. Lesotho's quarter 2 figures were yet to be released by the Bureau of Statistics at the time of compiling this report. All right, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Next up, economic indicators. Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time to get into your sports news updates, and we start off in the world of tennis. Osaka falls out of top 10 for the first time since 2018. Naomi Osaka dropped out of the world's top 10 on Monday for the first time since winning the 2018 US Open title, as she continues to take a break from tennis. The Japanese star, a former world number one, has not played since exiting the US Open in the third round last month. Last week, the 23-year-old said that her return would be probably soon and that she kind of has that itch again. Osaka had previously pulled out of the French Open and skipped Wimbledon this year to protect her mental health. Two-time Grand Slam champion Garbine Muguruza jumped to 6th in the rankings after winning the title in Chicago last week. Tunisian Ons Jabeur, who lost to Muguruza in the final, climbed to a career-high ranking of 14th.
Dana looks to continue hot streak at next UFC fight night. Mackenzie Dana will look to continue her hot streak when she faces Marina Rodriguez in the women's strawweight main event of the UFC Fight Night scheduled for the APEX facility in Las Vegas on Saturday, the 9th of October 2021. Dan has racked up 4 straight wins in the past 16 months, overcoming Hannah Sifas, Rada Marcos, Virna Jadiroba, and Nina Nunes. Known as the submission specialist, 7th of her 11 wins have come via that method. The 28-year-old has no secret of desire to defeat Rodriguez in exactly the same manner come Sunday. I think her ground game has a lot to work on, Dan explained. I have seen her do a couple of elbows from the bottom, but more when the girl is just holding on the ground.
All right. In our next story, we are talking cricket. Australia and India settle for draw in pink ball test. Australia and India settled for a draw in the women's pink ball test at the Carrara Oval on Sunday in a game that fluctuated for 4 days but failed to produce a result due to rain. The match was set up nicely on the final day after Elsie Perry, 68 not out, and Ashley Gardner, 51, helped Australia save the follow-on, with captain Meg Lanning declaring on 241 for 9 and handing India a 136-run lead in the hope of forcing a result. The hosts, however, could only reach 36 for 2 in 15 overs before both captains shook hands for a draw. Without the weather, we would have got a result in 4 days. We certainly came to win, as did India. India played really well and put us on the back foot. We had to fight it out. They ran in hard and gave it their all, Lanning said. An outright result was always in doubt after bad weather interrupted play on the opening 2 days. India's skipper Mithali Raj was happy with her team's performance.
Butler says England can win T20 World Cup even without Archer Stokes. England are favourite to win the 2020 World Cup despite the absence of pace bowler Jofra Archer and all-rounder Ben Stokes, wicket-keeper better Jos Buttler said. Stokes was not included in England's 15-man preliminary squad as he extended his break from cricket to focus on his mental health, while Archer ruled himself out after he suffered a recurrence of stress fracture in his right elbow. Coach Chris Silverwood named better Lime Livingstone and fast bowler Timel Mills as the replacement in the England squad for the World Cup, which will be held in the United Arab Emirates and Oman from the 17th of October.
We end our sports stories with some MotoGP as Marquez wins 7th MotoGP of the Americas. Marc Marquez reasserted his mastery of the circuit of the Americas on Sunday, winning MotoGP's Grand Prix of the Americas for the 7th time. Marquez made it look easy as he gave Honda their 450th top-class podium and took another step in his return from injury. The Spaniard had notched his first victory in 19 months when he won the German Grand Prix in June. A victory on track where he has been a force was a positive note in a season of uncertainty, Marquez said. Sometimes I crash and I don't understand why. Sometimes I'm slow and I don't understand. Sometimes I'm fast and I don't understand, he said. That special feeling is still not there with the bike. Nevertheless, victory was an achievement worth celebrating. With just 3 races left with this season and with 25 points on offer to the winner of each one, Fabio Quartararo is within touching distance of a first MotoGP world title. All right, that brings us to the end of our sports stories. After the break, your headlines. For the last year, Africa Good Morning has been and will continue to be your reliable source for news happening in the SADC region and beyond. We start off at 7 a.m., we end at 8 a.m. Our top stories are at the top of the hour, and if you happen to miss those, worry not. We always bring you your headlines, and here are today's headlines. Ethiopia's Abiy Ahmed sworn in amid dissenting voices. Tunis regrets French decision to reduce visas. Mali receives 4 helicopters and weapons from Russia. More than 5,000 migrants detained in Libya, according to NGO. Economic diversification is a matter of life and death. Osaka falls out of top 10 for the first time since 2018. Those have been our stories.
We thank you very much for joining us on Africa Good Morning. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. We have a website. It's called One Up 2. We are also on Facebook and Twitter. That's at Africa Good Morning. Please do not forget to play your part in the fight against COVID-19. And we see you again tomorrow.
Absolutely. We've really been enjoying this journey. One last time. We turned 1 today. Don't you forget it. We have many more years to come. See you tomorrow. Swera Zwakanaka.